Welcome to the Damascus Encounter, your interesting and delightful program on television, where we share beautiful stories and encounters people have had with Jesus and a big transformation in their lives. I have with me in the studio today a very important personality here at Babcock University, and of course, a child of God, most importantly. He is Pastor Dr. Sunday Didam Audu, who is the Vice President, Student Development, Babcock University. Pastor Sunday Audu, you are welcome to the Damascus Encounter.
Thank you very much, Femi, for having me here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the show. So, let's have a little bit of your story, and hopefully by the grace of God, many will be blessed as they watch and listen. So, your early childhood, growing up, you got baptized at the age of 7. How did you come about that?
All right. You know, everyone has a life story to tell.
Sure.
And these experiences while growing up make you to become who you are. I was born in the northern town of Kaduna, where I grew up. The particular village or community where I grew up is known as Kachia. It's actually a local government. Yes, Kachia. My father was a polygamist. He had 3 wives. By the time I was growing up, I think the third one couldn't stay, so she left. My mother happened to be the second wife in that polygamous marriage. Between them, that is my father and his 2 wives, were 15 children. On my mother's side, we were 7, but we lost 2. I'm the only male child of
on your mother's side?
Yes, on my mother's side. 5 of us, the rest are girls, and I am at the top of the pyramid. So it was an interesting childhood where we grew up as a family, and as a polygamist, you know, he is there, his relations, his relatives, which who are our own relatives too. Then both wives will have their relatives, you know, friends, cousins, nephews. So it was one big happy family. Food was generally generous. And,
in abundance.
Yes, in abundance. We had a big bowl. He was a man of average means, so we ate very, very well. A big bowl, everyone gathers and struggles for what is there. So we had lots of people around the family, friends, relations, like I said, staying with us. And one interesting thing is that everybody's child, son, daughter was everybody's brother and sister. Yes, that was it. My father was an Anglican. Yes, he was an Anglican. Though as a polygamist, he did not carry out an active role in the church.
In the church,
Yes, but his 2 wives were actively involved in the women's fellowship and other activities of the church. You know, I believe it's an African thing, the church itself. But we also participated within that background. We looked forward to going to church because it was a time to go interact with more friends in the church. So by nature, by my upbringing, I grew up in the midst of so many family members. You know, I loved people without saying who is mine or who is not mine. Such was the experience. And so I grew up in the Anglican church. That was all I knew as a child, as the only church. Even though it was a smaller church, we had the Baptist church, which had a nursery school. That was where, at a point, I stayed with my maternal grandmother, an Anglican too, but I was sent to the Baptist nursery school. I can remember maybe when I was 2 or 3, where I was taught how to recite the books of the Bible, in Hausa, of course. I can recite from Genesis to Revelation in Hausa. It may not sound remarkable now, but in those days,
it was a big deal.
It was. If you could recite the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It was a very...
I'm sure even now it's still very, very... it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yes, it's a big deal. You know, mixing up, when you get to the epistles especially, by the time you leave Acts of the Apostles, you get to Romans, you begin to get into trouble. First, Second Corinthians, which one comes first? Is it Colossians or Philippians or First Thessalonians or First Timothy? You know, you have to struggle, so you needed a good memory to navigate through that. When you get to Jude, you heave a sigh of relief because, you know, Revelation comes
the last
next.
book.
Yes, in Hausa, so it was an interesting one. My father at the time had a stint in Islam, you know, but he later came back to Christianity again. Yes, so that was the kind of background. So basically, we also lived in the midst of Muslims. His friends were Muslims, our friends were Muslims. We grew together. But it was an interesting childhood.
Sure. And I'm sure with this rich Christian background and you growing up practically always having something to do with church, you had those experiences with young pastors who were interns that stayed with your family.
Yes.
So
yes.
How much of influence did they bring?
Yes. In the Anglican Church, actually, I didn't mention the bit about baptism. I was baptized at the age of about 7, I think, if I recall. You know, by sprinkling. The priests, the reverend simply brought a bowl of water. We were lined up. And you know, people, you know, no, individually, not generally. So, yeah, next, come, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And with his thumb, wet thumb, he does the sign of the cross like this and pronounces a blessing. Like I said, my father was a man of average means, had a big compound. And in the Anglican Church there, whenever interns came in from the theological seminary, he gave them accommodation. He accommodated them. And I was drawn to them because I loved their ways. I mean, they stood in front of the church, talked to people with their white cassock. You know, they had, you know, the clothes they wore.
Okay, because as priests,
they wore the white cassock. You know, interns would just put on the cassock. But those who are ordinands and those who are ordained, the ordinands, those not yet ordained, were known as deacons. They were known as deacons, unlike in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, where deacons are, you know, those helpers in the church. So the priests wore the cassock and then added the surplice. The top one was called the surplice. So I saw those interns coming with their cassocks. It was very attractive, and they will stand, reach out to the congregation, pronounce blessings.
And they had a way of looking immaculately white.
Very, 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 I mean, you know, once they stood in front, they called the shots. It's not a participatory worship, you know, setting like in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, where you hardly can tell who the pastor is or who the... So, but there, once the call to worship was declared, you knew who was in charge. So, you know, every priest had an aura, you know, around him. And I was really captivated. And if I may say, I was always their favorite. So whenever the internship period came to an end and they left back to school, I cried and cried and cried, like a part of me was gone.
Living.
Yes. So my mother noticed my affinity to them. One day she called me. She said, "My son, you know, you are my only male child. It is my desire." I remember that day in front of our compound under a grapefruit tree. I still recall, I was about 9 or so. She said, "My son, being my only male child, you know, it's my desire for you to be like one of these pastors that used to come and stay here with us. I would love that to happen. And the way I see your inclination, I would love that to happen." Well, okay, fine.
You were excited about it?
Yeah, I was excited. They were good people. I mean, pronouncing blessings, preaching, everybody respecting them. So, not because I needed the respect also, but I just felt they were doing something. I mean, if I could love them, I wanted to be loved also, you know.
Exactly.
Yes, I wanted to be loved.
So, but tell me, this notion where we grow up and then there's a way we look at pastors and we feel pastors are not rich. As a young kid growing up, we all had dreams. We wanted to be, maybe I'll be a doctor or maybe something that makes me have money, but a pastor, not so. So how was that kind of thinking with you?
Well, you know, the point is that in my childhood, state of mind, I never looked at it from the materialistic
And the
point of
monetary
view.
part.
And so I felt life would always be like that, because when we needed food, there was food. When we needed clothing,
everything needed was available.
Was there. But looking at the pastor standing, so my mind did not even go to whether they were paid or not. I mean, who would not be paid looking so nicely dressed with a white
and
castle?
godly?
You must have everything going.
It was almost as if they looked like angels.
Like angels, exactly. That was what I mean. It was when I grew up, I learned that even pastors could sin,
That they were human.
Yes, that they were human. So so that was the mindset. I felt, look, these are good people. I would like to be like them. And since as children we run around them, we love them, I felt people like this who are loved, should be what one can emulate. So that was just so, whether they were paid or not. And besides, we gave offerings in church. So since they are God's children, we felt the offering should take care of them.
So, but at some point now, you loved these pastors, the way they look, their aura, the aura around them and all, what have you. But then you attempted joining the army. How did you get there?
Yes, the issue of the army came years later. After I was done with my primary school, I had a strong desire to be educated. Okay. When we were growing up, we do go to the farm to work, to farm. Yeah. My mother was the second wife, I being the only male child. But the first wife had 3 boys. Okay. One was my senior in the order of birth from our father. One was younger than me in the order of birth. So in the order of birth, I am the second male child of my father. In the order of birth. But the only son of my mother. So my younger one. So whenever we went to the farm, my elder brother could farm very fast. He would move on. I being the next should be after him, but you see that my younger one will even do better than me. So oftentimes they will farm to a certain extent and wait for me to catch up with them. So my grandmother, my paternal grandmother who was living with us, she would say, she will call my name and say, you in Hausa, in the in the local dialect. She say, you. It is Bero, that is Biro. Okay. Say it is Bero that will be your hoe. It is Bero that will be your farming implementing.
You are not cut out for the farm.
Not cut out for the physical exertion. That is the pen that will be my own cutlass, is the pen that will be my hoe, my farming implement. I realize, and today the pen has really elevated me. So while growing up, after primary school, I had a strong desire to go to secondary school. I did. And that was when I developed. My uncle took me to live with him. He was an army officer. Okay. So he took me to live with him in the military barracks in Kaduna.
Okay, so we just hold the thought there, and then when we come back after the short break, we will take it up from there. Damascus Encounter will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Damascus Encounter, and we still have in the house Pastor Dr. Sunday Didam Audu, who is sharing his experience. Pastor Audu, so you attempted to join the Nigerian army. What happened, and why are you not in the army?
I mentioned my uncle took me from Kachia back to Kaduna. Okay. He was an army officer. I stayed with him in the military barracks and attended secondary school at Government College, Kaduna. We stayed at the Kotoko barracks by 81 barracks. Every morning we walked through the 81 battalion barracks, through the Nigerian Defense Academy, their former site. We saw the young cadets, in their exercise, jogging, training, and the interest intensified. So after my secondary school education in 1985, I made the commitment to join the army and obtained the forms to join the 37th regular course of the Nigerian Defense Academy. As a matter of fact, the current Nigerian Chief of Army Staff is also a member of the 37th regular course. So I would have been a major general by now. Either dead or alive, you know.
Of course.
But I'm a major general in the army of
Jesus.
You know, King Emmanuel.
Yeah.
So he is a major general in the armies of King Muhammad Buhari. Okay, so that was it. I was not selected. I was not selected. So from there I went on. That was how I didn't make any attempt again to join the Nigerian army. I felt okay, that was it. I went ahead and got further training after my secondary school education. That was 1986, after the attempt to join the army in 1985 failed.
So that was your attempt now moving into agricultural business?
Yes, yes. I actually took up a training under the animal husbandry division and did a certificate in poultry production under the Kaduna State government sponsorship. And at that, you know, we emerged, about 3 of us emerged the best. I was the second best. And the Kaduna State government gave us a prize, a gift of young, you know, chicks to go and put into practice what we have learned.
You have learned. Okay.
Yes, layers, and I raised them. That was the first time I started doing poultry business. You know, took care of them based on what we learned, and they laid eggs. It was a very profitable venture. So that was how I got into agriculture. Now, I didn't study agric science at the secondary school level. I didn't take it at all because I was an art student. But I became interested and delved into it, and it was a good experience. I was exposed to poultry management, poultry processing and marketing, poultry health and diseases, poultry nutrition, and so forth and so on. It's an area I'm very comfortable with. Maybe I would have been a veterinary doctor, but for my background in the arts. But I never thought of it anyway. I never thought of becoming a veterinary doctor.
When all of this was going on, trying to getting this tutelage in agriculture, what in your mind, what happened with the idea of your mom wanting you to be a pastor or a priest, as it were? Did you feel anything like you were moving off course, or this was just you and that's what you wanted?
Okay, momentarily, you know, there comes a time in life that life just happens to you. You wake up in the morning, you grab whatever life throws your way. I didn't even intend to go for that agric animal husbandry training. It was a friend. He said, oh, look, I'm going to say, really, let me follow you. We just went. No one even knew. I went and
enrolled. See what it looks like.
Nobody knew. I just went casually and said, well, it's something one could do to mark time. So I just went. So pretty much, one thing I didn't get was, besides my mother's allusion to the fact that I could be like one of these pastors, no one really sat me down to talk about career. Even the attempt to join the army, it was environmentally influenced.
That was the interest of what you saw.
Yes,
every
because
morning.
I was in the barracks, saw these young cadets on training, you know, neatly dressed during the passing out ceremony. Presently, Defense Academy has moved to, if you are on your way to the airport in Kaduna, that is their new site. But then they were just by the 81 Battalion. Those who are familiar with Kaduna will know. So the issue of being a pastor, what my mother said, did not really, I didn't really think about it.
Okay.
I was just moving on with my
life the way.
That is it. Unknown to me, this training I had in animal production was to pave the way, to redirect me back to where God wanted me to be, actually. Because after the training, I left Kaduna, did personal private farm work. Then I was 17, 18 for another 1 year. But then in the church there, we had people, the priests now, not the interns. You know, we were involved in the church as youngsters, choirs, those choir members, those in the youth, those in the boys' brigade. Boys' brigade is equivalent of what we have today as the Adventist youth
movement.
You know, ministries, yes. So we were involved in the boys' brigade. We were very, very active. And so the ministers, the priests, took an interest and a liking at us. A few of the young people were so selected because of our zeal and interest. So after working for 1 year for myself, doing private farming, taking care of chickens and other things, the priest then who was mentoring us, currently he's the Archbishop of Jos Diocese, Reverend Bishop Dr. Benjamin Arga Kwashi.
Okay.
Yeah, he is currently the Archbishop of Jos Diocese. He was the one that packaged us, 3 of us youngsters. I remember the names. Iswa Seidu, he's an archdeacon now, a venerable reverend. Joshua Bosan, he's a reverend canon now. And myself, he packaged us. And because of my training, he sent me to the Christian Farmers Association. It's an outfit of the Anglican Church that uses agriculture as an entering wage. You know, the North, our main business is agriculture.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So the best way to get to the Northerner is through agriculture. So that was it. And that was how I got into the Anglican Church, not as a priest, but as a farmer.
As a farmer. What exactly, specifically, were you doing, and how was that really an arm of evangelism?
All right. Now, you know, the Anglican Church belongs to the Church of England, Anglican Communion.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it's called the Anglican Church. Anglican simply means an Anglo church, Anglican.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's actually the Church of England, Anglican Communion, with dioceses all over the world, with the headquarters at Canterbury, the UK, all right? It was from the UK that the Christian Farmers Association was packaged, CMS, Anglican, and then we had expatriates who were leading the organization. The purpose, the aim is, besides the conventional approach in preaching the gospel, agriculture was to be used. The Fulani in the north, they rear their cows and goats and sheep. They are farmers. The crop farmers in the north, which is the biggest job creator or engagement of northerners, the crop farmers needed farm input. So the Christian Farmers Association packaged farm inputs, agro-allied products, implements, tools, agro-processing materials, fertilizers, the herbicides, when we say farm inputs generally, animal drugs, mineral supplements. And now this is where the gospel component comes in. Christian literature.
Okay.
In Hausa, the most widely spoken language in northern Nigeria. In English, for those who could speak English. And in Fulfulde, the language spoken by the Fulani.
Okay.
And Arabic. Now, it's Ajamic Arabic. Arabic, there is what you call Arabic, then there is Ajamic Arabic. Ajamic Arabic is actually Hausa written in Arabic scripts.
Okay.
It's what you have in the coat of arms of the army. It's what you have in the Naira note. People argue that Nigeria is being Islamized. No, that is Hausa, but written in Arabic scripts. Okay, Ajamic Arabic. So we had material. I can't read that anyway. So we had such materials. Why? When the farmer comes, if he's a Christian, we serve him with Christian literature alongside. Some were free, some were sold. Only the Holy Bibles and the hymnals were sold. All other literature
were free.
From the UK, Gospel Gift, Scripture Gift Mission, SGM, the publication of, I think from Salisbury also in the UK. So those things were brought in packages, so for distribution. And so that was what we were doing. When you come, whoever came then, was given free literature. Is Fulani. I had encounters with Fulanis that I even led to Christ through that. They will come. Their cows, the farmers, the input, and that really, I think, is something. ADRA is doing something similar to that.
Similar to that. Church.
Yes. And then what I see in the Adventist Church akin to that is more on health. That is the home health education service being used to reach out. So that was how it was in the Anglican Church. And it was a very effective very effective tool.
Way of reaching out.
Yes, very, very.
Okay, so now let's talk briefly before our time runs out on how you now came to that decision of you wanting to be a priest, an Anglican priest.
Okay. Yes. Now, like I told you, I started working for the Anglican Church in 1988, I think. Yeah, 1988. Then I was 18, 19. Okay. Yes, about that age. Like I said earlier, I started working for the church now, not as a pastor or as a priest, but from the agric angle. So there, part and parcel of that work is to send people for training. You'll be given theological training, because then we had about two. We had Jacob Zankut, we had Yahya Tabat, who had gone to a Bible school. They came back and they continued working in the agric outfit. Is to sharpen the workers to reach out to those who are serving agriculturally. So it was a potential for us to go and be trained like that. But within the church circles, those mentoring us wanted us to actually become priests. And I was positioning myself for that actually, because more than ever before, I had contacts, because even the church, the Anglican church, would want to come and acquire Bibles for members for evangelistic purposes. So besides the agric, that scripture, scripture literature ministry was there, not like the canvassing ministry. But so the interactions were more, and I developed that interest. After a year working there, I made up my mind I was going to be a priest. It was just a matter of time. It was just a matter of time.
Very interesting. And of course, the story continues as you eventually never became a priest in the Anglican Church, but then some other things happened, which we'll talk about on the other part when we continue sharing your story on the Damascus Encounter. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today, and hopefully that you'll be with us next time as we continue the story on your journey towards being a pastor in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That'll be all on today's edition of the Damascus Encounter. Of course, the story of Pastor Sunday Didam Audu continues in the next edition, where he'll be helping us see exactly how God led him and eventually he became a Seventh-day Adventist. We hope you'll be with us on the next edition of the show. And until then, I want to say have a beautiful time watching, and God bless.